If I just posted links to my Webtoon exclusives, it would get no likes, no retweets, and our entire page would be forgotten.
When Big Chungus Chan meets Thanos appears on a Twitter timeline, what do you say to yourself? Would it be,
What cringe is this? Who in their right mind would make that comic?
or perhaps,
Now this is gold. I'm gonna share it with all my friends.
once the like and retweet happens, for the most part, that is the end of it. But have you ever wondered who's behind the comic? What drives them to make such content? And is this all they can make? Merryweathery is a popular webcomic studio known for making these meme panels. But in doing so, he has put himself in an existential rut that causes him to stress each passing day. From turning inanimate objects into anime women, to making completely original works, the former often gets more attention, leading to a lot of unsavory comments. Hello, I'm Daft Pina, and this is Merryweather Waifu Sadness. But before we go more into the comics in front of the man, let's go behind the comics to figure out who the man is. As for this video, I interviewed him to see what was going on. Merryweathery Comics is a long name, so I'll just be referring to him as Mary. Is a 26-year-old from Denmark who's engulfed in Japanese and American culture ever since he was a wee baby boy. Being able to speak English, Danish, and Japanese, he got a chance to live in Japan between 2017 to 2018, but for the purposes of this video, the interview is conducted in English, and he tweets in English.
Wait. I learned Japanese just for this video, only for it to just go unused?
What'd you learn how to say?
Buongiorno!
The story of Mary begins in 2012 at a Danish convention called Genki when he was 16. He saw that everyone at the convention was doing stuff like cosplaying, drawing, writing, or even making comics, so he wanted to do something of his own. With him not being a drawing artist himself, he went up to the first booth at the convention and said,
Would you please make my comic?
They said no. So he went over to the next person and they said yes, which is pretty lucky if you think about it. As if he stopped at the first person, the other booth guy might have gone with someone else's comic. Though it wouldn't be until 2017 with the artist, Joachim Waller, who would draw for Mary, with that comic being Steam Dragon Express. I personally met Mary in 2018 when dealing with the unsavory individual at Otaku Studios, who was harassing both of us. But if you want to learn more about that predator, go check out my video about him, as we need to keep going. And he's only really like a footnote in the story. Originally posting to DeviantArt, he later transitioned to Webtoons as it's a better place to read webcomics. If you're new to the site, there are two sections for creators. One being Canvas, which is essentially a free-for-all, and the other being Originals, meaning that the creators officially partnered with the company, thus making it easier to boost the comic and even get paid more in doing so. Well, you can make money on Canvas, but only if you reach a certain threshold and you can keep a good consistency, which a lot of artists can't. Mary started off on the former, but back in 2016, he spoke with David S. Lee regarding a payment issue.
We talked for like 2 minutes and then he said, hey, I like the Winter Moon thing. Maybe we should talk about that. And I was like, sure. And then we added each other on Skype and that's how I got Winter Moon published.
Though the occurrence of contacting David really only happened with Mary, as in the current year you have to do a proper pitch of documents and make sure you have a proper consistent output to be in the original section. Bottom line, don't go bothering that guy. Since his 2017 debut, he has since made numerous comic series such as, but not limited to, Minecraft Anime Edition, Hairnet-chan, Winter Moon, Everywhere and Nowhere, Fox Girls Are Better, Crawling Dreams, Clinic of Horrors, A City Called Nowhere, How to Stop the Apocalypse, Stalker x Stalker, My Succubus Girlfriend, My Incubus Boyfriend, Meme Girls, Virgin vs. Chad, and many others. Mary noted that he often watches the first episode of every new anime to help research and get a broader sense for writing, which of course helps when you know Japanese as he does, no need to wait on subtitles. And with all the comics he's creating, he had to hire a lot more artists. Like, a lot more of them. And they earn about $2,500 to $3,000 a month for their work, plus bonuses. Though his webtoon comics are a stark contrast to his studio's Twitter account because of what's posted there. Meme comics, like the Chungus Chan mentioned earlier, are some of his more well-known ones. This is considered moe anthropomorphism, turning often inanimate or animate objects into cute anime girls. And this style of comics, often in a 4-panel format, is akin to Korean manhwa, manga, and even Garfield, as he once said in an interview. These one-off comics are more easily shareable and easier to read on smartphones, so it's no wonder how he was able to capture a large audience. And the last stop on this metaphorical bus, oh, you didn't realize that we were on the bus the whole time? To see his comics are on his YouTube channel, which offers dubs in Japanese and subtitles in English. Well, comic titles? This is where Minecraft Anime Edition is housed, as Webtoons is not privy to parody-esque content, I guess. And with 2 new series set to debut, Ice Princess and the Surfer, as well as Bunny Girl and the Cult, surely he is happy with the success of his works. as not many people have the opportunity to produce multiple, let alone one, comic to a major website and get paid for it. But these emotions run deeper than potential financial or success troubles, as is the concept of public perception and legacy of what people know you for and judge you for. Like how people know of my cats, Bear and Marvel, fantastic little creatures. Despite making a lot of original comics, as I did just read a big ol' list of them, he's mostly known for the meme ones, and the consistently popular of those being console and internet girls, based on the moeimorphism as mentioned before. With how long Mary's been on the platform, a lot of anti-fans can be put into two categories. Those assuming he's a one-trick pony, saying that he only makes these meme comics, or rather the ones fans assuming he stopped making the original comics entirely. The latter often say they don't see them being updated within their Twitter timeline. The website, or app if you use it on your phone, is an interesting place for posting art and memes. A lot of what a user posts can get lost within the algorithm, and mixing with a low attention span of the users causes a lot of narratively driven original comics to go down the drain.
The problem is social media has become so powerful. The algorithm directly promotes things that are not serialized. And for that reason, it's kind of difficult because I am faced with either do not make meme comics, do not make things that people could consider to be cheap content, like McDonald's of webcomics or something like that. But at the same time, then I will see that the social media pages of my studio, it's going to die.
On Western Twitter, you're more likely to see memes or fan arts of popular pieces of media because it's a thing people know. Much like Meat Canyon's parodies that often rely on people's preconceived notions on properties, meaning they're more easily consumed within the limits of the medium, be that a short 3-minute cartoon or 4-panel comic. For internet girls, Mary bases them on web browsers. Google is known to eat up a lot of RAM and is a big company, so if you don't know who Mary is and you see something called Google Chan, you already get a feel of their personality.
The problem comes when you start to face criticism for doing this kind of thing, which is something I've started feeling in these last 2 years, I would say. In that people assume that these short social media comics is the only thing I do.
While one can suggest Twitter threads, bumping the original post doesn't mean the newest comic will be shown. This leads into a larger problem with series like Winter Moon having over 500 pages, as that's a lot to scroll through on the website. Or app if you're on the phone. So Twitter often favors things that are not serialized, as it's easier to promote and share. So for artists like Chicken Nuggets and Doggy Down, their content can thrive as the average user can check the content at any time without worry of missing an update. And because you don't have to see the previous one to know what this one's about, it's a lot easier to consume on the platform. And I personally take that concept to heart with these videos, which is why I often reword or rephrase things already said in other ones, as this might be the first time you're watching one of my videos. Which if it is, please like and subscribe, leave a comment, tell me how I'm doing. I'd very much appreciate that. Thank you. Circling back to Mary, he has to make these meme comics for better or for worse, or else his social media pages will die. If he opted to solely post links to his works and not interact or meme, then the general public would lose interest in what he does. While he has great success on webtoons, there's only finite growth unless you can pull in from other websites. Twitter's a great place to do so, as it has such a broad audience, as everyone from your mom or your cat knows of its existence. So you have to balance trying to promote your original works and meme comics as a way to keep your page afloat. But in saying that, with these limitations of non-serialized content, that doesn't mean he can't create something more engaging than a standard Garfield strip, such as Mary's Fate of Humanity, mainly due to the questions it asks the viewer.
Oh, dang, that could be me. What if it was me?
This one has sparked so much debate. Everyone agrees that it's like really good, and many people have told me that they remember this comic for years after reading it. I like to do existential horror. I like to do horror-themed things. I like to do that kind of comic. But the problem is that the amount of things you can do with the space afforded to you on Twitter is limited.
And an interesting side section between these two perceptions of Mary's Twitter presence is a third one that lingers no matter what. Is the idea that he creates these comics by himself or is a completely terrible boss to his artists. Mary is a writer first and foremost, and it's often lost in the conversation who draws these pieces, despite him clearly labeling who draws them. And so misinformation spreads fairly easy on the platform, like how Mary's YouTube fandom page says he revealed to be male in 2020, though he's made it pretty obvious in previous appearances.
Introducing Moi Anime Girls with...
It is to note a lot of his artists are women, so if that was a concern, I hope that was quelled.
Yes, I was about to leave a mean comment, but now I'm quelled. Which is also today's word.
We don't have a word of the day. But going back into crediting, because he's the lead of the studio, it is assumed by a good chunk of people that he takes credits for all the work. Much in the vein of people saying Elon Musk is a brilliant fellow making Teslas, despite the fact he employs a lot of engineers and scientists, but they don't make memes on Twitter, so who even are they?
But now we have people knowing, because I made it obvious, because I tried to make it more clear that I'm not the artist. Now we have people knowing that I'm not the artist and then spreading it around like it's a revelation and then saying, this guy just doesn't even draw it and he gets all the money for all of the things and he gets all the credit and the artists get nothing. I feel so bad for the artist. So I wrote a Twitter thread where I explained exactly where does the money go in Mario the Comics, and I explained I am currently earning $0 a month from all of my comics.
And of course, one must understand this spiteful speculation is a natural part of online discourse. And because Mary opts to run these social medias by himself, he doesn't have a barrier between these critiques and his studio. This leads to a feeling that he must respond to negative comments. An often recurring situation is seen to reply under one of his posts, rack up a bunch of likes, retweets and replies, leading to Mary questioning if he should get involved.
Like, what do? Do I just let this negative perception of me float out there in the ether? Is there even anything I can do? I've been hovering over mute, block, reply. I've been hovering over these 3 buttons and I have no idea which one to choose.
Are they trolls? Are they fans? Are they former fans? With the feeling that he must intervene, Mary often opts to engage. Though that's at the assumption that the person on the other end of the screen really cares to hear the answer. Or for the case of iDubbbz interviewing Sam Hyde, it's hard to tell if the other person actually wants to hear you out. This might just end up being a losing battle on the reply front, as noted in a MaxG video.
Recognition. You know, the more people there are who know you, the more people there are who hate you.
And it's not just for Mary, as I've seen many of these comments appear to other creators, as some artists on Twitter really dislike that their original works are not liked or shared enough, so to see a meme comic get hundreds if not thousands of likes, they lash out on what's otherwise a post. In regards to Chungus-chan, Mary said,
I improv wrote this comic script in like 1 minute on my stream during a comic writing stream.
And so this is to understand it's more of an obtuse issue rather than something that can be easily solved. Part of that is entangled with the idea that a lot of Mary's previous works go on hiatuses or just end completely, I guess. This leads into the former fans part. With webtoons being the main source of income for his comics, what makes a work fail can be many factors. On the internal side, since Mary employs others, he's at the mercy of that artist. Though contracted, they might have an emergency or perhaps need a small break before continuing a particular series. And for Mary, as a writer, can get burnt out with the characters, causing them to go on hiatus. Or for a worse fate for his series, there's a lack of interest from his audience. And so he has to balance paying his artists while giving his audience something they like. As for each comic, there must be a net gain in order for it to continue. As despite a series having a fan base, it might die mid-arc, solely because of the lack of support. And to expand on the artist note, Mary opts for a more Eastern approach for 1 artist per manga. So if the artist is unable to continue the next season or arc, a reboot is more preferable than working with someone else, as it's considered disrespectful to hire someone to emulate the former worker. This happened with My Succubus Girlfriend, for better or for worse.
It's kind of scary to emotionally invest yourself in a comic, to think like, I love these characters, I want to make stories about these characters forever. At the same time, there's an artist on the other end who has to draw it, and maybe they won't want to do stories with these characters forever. Maybe one day they want to move on and do something else. I have no idea, and that's terrifying.
To work on that front, Mary aims to not write in the typical shonen style, and aims for more finite and easily digestible stories. For example, Virgin vs. Chad was originally a one-shot comic turned into a 12-page arc due to fan interest, so to have shorter stories while working towards longer ones may be the route to go. As often with long-standing manga, hiatuses and pacing issues may occur, and this can dampen fan awareness and patience if they have to wait quite a while for the next update. In fact, some of Mary's works haven't been updated in years, despite having somewhat active fan bases.
For a billion reasons, I've had moments where I'm just like, maybe I should just not do this one right now. Maybe I'll come back to it later. And then years come by and people are still waiting for it in the replies to the latest episode of that comic line. It's kind of heartbreaking to see because these are people who cared about the story. These are people who cared about the characters. So I definitely want to go back and provide some sort of resolution to comics like that.
For Bunny Girl and the Colt, as well as Ice Princess and the Surfer, Mary is aiming to try again with these Twitter threads, as these will be serialized stories, though at a much smaller scale, as mentioned earlier. As a problem with a lot of webcomics, as noted in my Rebel Taxi video, is that things are not often fully written out, or the artist aims too high, causing these hiatuses with gaps in public interest. So for these comics, they're fully written out and will be fully illustrated before release, with a strict schedule to post to hype it up. As dumping a series, the Netflix style one could say, while nice for the viewer to binge everything, not having some time between each episode leads to little fan speculation and hype, as having conversations in the comment section, or even Twitter itself, can boost public awareness of the series, thus keeping healthy interest. And this was a weird surprise when the Adult Swim series Smiling Friends aired every single episode in one night, despite them not really advertising it, though that's more due to contracting issues than anything else. So if the concept of serialized content is being worked on to please the fans, then what can be done with the barrier between himself and his audience? As if he does choose to respond, he's speaking from a more corporate account, and for the most part, even if he does succeed with the new comic formatting, the general perception will still be
Merryweather. Oh yeah, the dude that pays artists to write those meme comics. Wish you'd make more originals.
So if not the reply route, how could one go about being more open to your audience while still appealing to the same realm of anime content? VTubing. Mary discovered VTubing after watching Kazuna AI, a character that came out of 2016 and could be considered one, if not the earliest in the genre. This is also the character you saw if you subscribed to me and replied to my posts, or my other community posts, which shows off fan recommendations for webcomics. Oh look, Meriwether's name shows up. But for Kazuna AI, she's on break, and doing NFTs now, I guess? And to take from the comments on my posts, in basic layman's terms,
VTubing is like Muppets for weebs.
yeah, it's basically that. VTubers differ from traditionally drawn OCs and cross-armed avatars on YouTube, as the tube aspect relies on them being live streamed, mocap to match or nearly match the movements for the technician, human, acting like a one-to-one puppet, and you kinda see how they're Muppets for weebs.
Get the fuck off my set.
At the start, the technology for face tracking was expensive and not widely known, so it was more so a corporate endeavor. This led to some speculation that these company-based avatars might just replace a voice without anyone noticing, much like the episode of Black Mirror with Waldo. Though over time, as technology does, it becomes a lot cheaper and easily accessible to the people, leading to the public to make their own avatars. Though Mary has shown his face in interviews before, to branch out with his studio, he liked the idea of having a virtual avatar, as to him it brings more engagement rather than just having a simple voice on screen, or him on screen, I guess. In starting these streams, he felt more of a connection with his audience, and even rekindled a love for video games during the process.
I always felt like when I was playing video games that I should be doing something better. I didn't feel like I was doing anything worthy of my time when I was playing video games. It felt lonely. I didn't really feel like I wanted to play Final Fantasy, but I didn't feel like I had anyone to play with. So when I started VTubing and I was able to play games like Final Fantasy or play games with my viewers, it felt for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was wasting my time, and I felt like I wasn't alone.
And since he's only the writer for his comics, a lot of work is put onto other people, meaning there's a lot of scheduling and barriers put between him and finalized work. The underlying fears that the artist must leave, thus canceling a project, is entirely avoided when VTubing. A model is made for the program, and with that, it's automated and controlled through the software alone. Meaning if the artist decides to quit after making a few outfits or props, Mary can continue on as he owns the art. Of course, later down the line he might want to change art styles and hire someone else. Though the concept that he has more control of his endeavors is freeing. This isn't to say, of course, he hasn't tried his hand at art, as the fan favorite Spookman was personally hand-drawn by him in MS Paint. But that's more so a jokey than a serious attempt at creating a series by itself.
Doing comics when you're only a writer and you're dependent on artists is very fun, but at the same time, it's also a little bit scary. Because at any moment, if one of my artists decides, I don't want to do this anymore, the project stops dead flat. the reason why I love the VTubing thing is because it's not like that.
We can go home later and play some League of Legends. Let's go, bros. Oh, yeah.
Of course, VTubing has its limits with interactions, as the main programs Mary uses are Live2D and VSeeFace. With the former being 2D and the latter 3D based, Live2D has an advantage of potential more accurate face expressions at the expense of not being able to move around much with the avatars. With VSeeFace, you can track body parts, making it more interactive, but this caveat is the expense of lack of facial expressiveness. But there are VTubers capable of more accurate tracking, such as CodeMiko, which uses industry-grade equipment to track near-perfect motions in 3D. But that's like super expensive.
Okay, and it was 13,500-ish with tax.
Even with the program's restrictions in place, Mary feels more connected to his audience as they're there to watch him, personally. Or in this case, Mary Dog.
Woof.
With October 2020 being the time where he opened up a personal Twitter account, he's often seen replying to both as a way to boost the other's, well, accounts. And much like his comics, he's expanded into VTubing of his friends, Lumi, Sif, and Elizabeth, whom utilize animal-themed characters that often play around with each other on stream.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lumi. I'm a wolf. Ahoo!
And as an aside, Lumi was actually the first one to debut, as the Mary Dog persona came a bit later. In building a fanbase of his own, there's less worry about not being heard, as he can talk to an audience directly in front of a lot of people at once, rather than spending a lot of time replying to everyone. But even with the side venture of VTubing, and I call it a side as like this section is actually quite short, there are more hurdles for future works that need to be addressed. As with online content production, there's never the end, it's more of the and. His introduction as a VTuber has helped him be more personal with his audience, though there are underlying issues that he still faces with content. As a main goal of all media accounts, they must focus on getting people to read his webcomic off-platform. The internets used to be more open, with people having their websites that people would bookmark, but with the modern age, there are like 7 websites, I guess. And those places even have measures to keep you staying on them, often suppressing outside links. And with YouTube, something we seldom touched upon in the video, has been a good way to revitalize already made content for those not on webtoons. These videos, dubbed in Japanese and worded in English, as he puts it, makes it more engaging for 2 different audiences at once. Native Japanese speakers can listen to the characters, while American audiences can read them, akin to anime with subtitles. In fact, Mary actually has Japanese titles and tags, so if you use a Japanese VPN,
Or I guess you live there.
you'll see these videos being recommended to you. And with that, his more original works have a chance to get seen by new audiences with these videos, as the average person has an easier time keeping up with the YouTube channel, as it's a website the general public is more used to. Though posting on webtoons, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube are main staples for content creation, what about the newcomer? TikTok. Unlike the failed short-form service, Vine, users can actually get paid with TikTok, so has Mary tried to put his works on the platform? Well, there is a major barrier once again, but this time, it's technological. Unlike other apps, TikTok is behind a region lock. For Mary, who currently resides in Denmark, with his Danish phone connected to a Danish network, his waifu comics are only seen in that region. So despite his audience being mostly English and Japanese speaking, because of his phone and location, his content is not seen over in those areas that he wants to cater to. To circumvent this, he recently got a virtual SIM card connected to a VPN, but that has yielded limited success. And in fact, TikTok could always patch that later on to make sure you use official SIM cards, but either way, his reach on this new and thriving platform is limited, all because he lives in a different country. For an American example, the Yo Mama TikTok accounts, comprised mostly of older content, has nearly 300,000 followers within the profile's young life. So this isn't to say there isn't a new audience for his works, as the platform is very easy to grow on, unlike Twitch. Rather, he doesn't have the chance to be shown to the potential new viewer. And this is something to keep in mind with foreign creators, as the medium is mostly American-centric. It's important for Mary to specifically work out the app issue, as TikTok has an option to link to Twitch channels.
The reason why it's so frustrating is because many of my friends actually get hundreds of thousands of views on their TikToks. And these kind of views trickle over to their Twitch, because you can promote your Twitch through your TikTok account. And it really matters. This level of promotion really matters. So we've been looking for a solution. It seems like we finally found the solution, thank God, with this virtual SIM card thing. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating.
This has personally affected Lumi, the Finnish VTuber, as her TikToks are recommended to a natively non-English speaking audience, so when they see someone emulating an anime girl while speaking English, hate is often directed towards her. Circling back to public perception and what can be done, besides having a Twitch and a more personal account, I spoke with him about his bio. Often whenever a person reads a funny comic on Twitter, they might check out the user's profile for new stuff. So it's imperative to have that bio be thoroughly combed through. Originally, it just linked to his comics, so to push more towards his original writings, we opted to reward it to non-meme comics. Though this is a small change, it's very necessary in the long run, as if anyone questions if he has any serious works, he or one of his fans can reply to the comment with the basic screen cap. And if this happens enough times, your fans will do it for you and become a fun meme on those people so lazy they don't even check your bio. But even with making things as clear as you can, you have to realize there's only so much you can do. Even with how clear you are, people could just misunderstand the situation, or they just want to perpetuate misinformation because they don't like you. I remember in my dream music video review, I mentioned that the Minecraft YouTuber originally wanted 2D animation for a song, but ended up going with a 3D animation team, thus compromising his vision. And some person took that as...
Daph clearly hates 3D animation. Yeah, one time I showed Daph the clip from Encanto and he used like f***ing mind powers to make the phone combust into flames in my hand.
Instead of the underlying idea for the whole video, that I wish Dream would have taken more time for this personal song, if it was reversed and he wanted a 3D animation and instead went with a 2D team, I'd still say he compromised on his vision. For timing. So to see something like Big Chungus Chan meets Thanos appear in your timeline and you get angry? It might be better as a creator to not engage, as at that point, it's a matter of personal preference, often done with derogatory wording. So if what he's done thus far, creating a personal profile, cleaning up his studio bio, and being more open about things, at the end of the day, those who wish to read your original works will find them, and perhaps you could just be internalizing these specific negative comments. The algorithm and comment section is what it is, so knowing how to navigate it and when to intervene can change your whole perception of how it affects you. Even if his TikTok is simply used for just meme comics, that doesn't mean it's not directing people to his narrative comics. These meme comics, while they do detract from his original works, do help his studio get seen. His recent JoJo parody of Seymour Skinner's Bizarre Luncheon got over 100,000 likes on Twitter, thus funneling back into his webtoon readership. These posts raise awareness of his brand, thus turning those who share his memes essentially into free publicity for his more original works. So in the end, though he is pestered by certain ideals of comments that don't understand why such things are made, it's helping him in the long run. It just takes being more open in videos like this to help better explain what's going on and paint a clearer picture for the audience. And speaking of, with Mary's success as a writer, I asked him to give some advice to young creators and producers.
I have like a few tips I've learned over the many years I've done comics that I would say was very valuable and I wish someone told me. The first one is, if you're going to spend a lot of money getting an artist to draw something, make sure it's a finished story. Make sure you start out with some short stories, something that you can show people. They can sit down, read, and then read the ending without you telling, I hope someday I'll have money enough for chapter 2. Don't do that. The second one is always pay artists what they ask. Or if an artist asks for an amount that you can't afford, just try another artist. Don't try to talk down their price, because at the end of the day, even if you succeed in talking down the price of their art, they're not going to be happy because they're not going to feel like they're being paid what their art is actually worth. Artists work best when they feel like their time is valued and when they don't feel like they're wasting their time. The third one is don't ask for too many revisions. I see a lot of people, and I'm even responsible for this myself sometimes when I don't pay attention too much. You can like write an episode of a comic and you have a very specific idea of how everything looks in your head, but the artist is never going to be able to do that specific idea. Just because it doesn't look like what it did in your head doesn't mean it's wrong, because you also got to consider when people are reading a comic, they're spending like a second on each panel. Sometimes finished is better than perfect, is what I'm trying to say, because then you can move on and then the artist is not going to feel frustrated and you can move on to more things and you can have a bigger output if you're not so perfectionistic. That's what I'd say, yeah.
As an addition, I'll throw in 3 more ideas that you should take to heart. Number 4 being that you shouldn't get too attached to an idea or concept. Things can and might need to be changed in order for you to produce the thing. This could be for budgetary, story, or simply logistical reasons. If you want to learn more about that, my video on Lucky IRL covers that subject more. But as a short aside, it's mainly about making sure that you're not spending a lot of time and money on a thing before knowing if the audience actually wants it, but still making something finite and complete that you can show people. This would be closely considered the sunk cost fallacy, or for a clear example, Mr. Hunter's going around. And now, with number 5, you will have more ideas. If you're super attached to this specific thing, if it fails, you have to pick yourself back up and just continue. I've seen this personally when talking to someone about their project not getting traction for one reason or another. They felt as if they had to give up on everything because their one idea didn't work, but there's always another option. Perhaps today isn't the day for your OCs, and maybe they just need more time in the oven with another cook to see what you can do with them. While I do like my cartoons Saturdays off, it just wasn't what people wanted, so while I'm reworking that idea, I have a different one set to release in 2022. And lastly, if you're just a writer who likes to make stuff and people tease you for it, and people say, well, everyone else is doing the work, what's this person doing? I mean, who cares what they think? Mary himself is just a writer, but because of his good management skills, he's able to produce a lot of comics, and they're enjoyed by many people. So if someone tries to argue with you that it's not their full creative vision, I mean, animation and comics are a collaborative medium, so are they gonna get mad at the industry? Endgame wasn't made by one guy. So if these writing concepts and the list itself mixed in with things that have happened to Mary, it is necessary to understand that it can happen to you too. To be known for a certain thing while trying to push for your other works, while at the same time trying to fight the algorithm, it's up to you if you can make it through. And for Mary, he continues to go on. For him, it's not about the money that he makes, rather he was able to achieve what he wanted to be all those years ago, a published writer.
But we can agree that the Big Chungus Chan anime girl is cringe, right?
With a lot of these problems coming from the advancements of social media, one must adapt to the ever-changing environment that is the online web space. For Mary, that comes with utilizing new ideas like VTubing and the popularity of memes to drive his business forward. Though he has constant struggles with online perception, while also trying to figure out how to push more original works to the Twitter platform, he is doing what he can to continue what he wanted to be when he first started in 2012 at the convention. I suppose we'll have to see how Mary does with his new comics and tactics of combating the public consciousness of his brand. I suppose we'll have to wait and find out if he succeeds. With that, thank you so much for watching this video, and special thank you to Mary Weathery for letting me interview him. Would you want to do a proper woof?
Woof.
Shout out to Solidus JJ for voicing select lines in this video. He always does a lovely job. If you want to help support my channel, become a patron today like these cool folks on screen. Until next time, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos, follow me on Twitter, and join Ellis Marks and I's Discord for art stuff. So until we meet again, please, I hope everyone has a fantastic